Welcome to Two Bridges, a celebration with Broadway. Two Bridges Neighborhood Council serves the residential, commercial, and cultural life of Manhattan's Lower East Side through community-based programs and strategic partnerships. Our service area includes the economically, culturally, and ethnically diverse neighborhoods of Two Bridges, Chinatown, and the Lower East Side. Now, please welcome tonight's host, Broadway and Television's own Damon J. Gillespie.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm Damon J. Gillespie, and I am excited and honored to host this evening's event. Two Bridges, a celebration with Broadway. But before we get started, I want to tell you a story. At the end of the 1960s, during a sweltering summer, amidst a backdrop of social and political upheaval in America, something incredible and unprecedented happened on the Lower East Side. People from all walks of life, cultures, creeds, and colors came together to plan a neighborhood block party. For many, this was the first time in their lives that they had interacted with people different than themselves. Many were skeptical that such an event would be successful, that people could come together in such a way and celebrate the neighborhood. As one African-American father put it, "I'm amazed that I could be in a white family's apartment planning such an event." But not only was the block party successful, it was the first of many events in subsequent years that shaped a neighborhood to become a beacon of solidarity and harmony in an otherwise fractured world. And who led the way to bring people together for that first event? That's right, Two Bridges Neighborhood Council. It is in that spirit that Two Bridges Neighborhood Council, or TBNC as it's often called, continues its tremendous work in fostering a tightly woven community that thrives at the intersection of generosity and selflessness. And we are asking for your continued generosity tonight. If you can, please make a donation to Two Bridges. Text Give Two Bridges to 44321. A link will be sent to your device. Simply click on it to access the donation page. And it's that easy. We have got a spectacular show ready for you, complete with multiple musical performances and a conversation with Broadway star Ewoldt. But first, let's take a look at what makes Two Bridges so special. Since 1954, Two Bridges has served the community by creating affordable housing and advocating for those who live and work in the area by providing access to social services, education technology, and recreational programs. But don't take my word for it. Take theirs.
Two Bridges Neighborhood Council started up as a little civic organization in 1954.
Two Bridges Neighborhood Council has been around for 60 years.
The first thing that comes to mind when I think about Two Bridges is the long-standing sense of community and commitment to the community.
People come from all over the neighborhood, but also from all over New York. And when they enter a space with staff and also with, like their neighbors, it just feels like a home.
Our mission remains the same in serving small businesses and the community members.
But when you come to a fitness class, Two Bridges, it's like a party. Middle-aged, seniors, young people, and to find a welcoming space like that's my favorite thing. And you can see those little pockets of people coming together in our basketball program.
Our basketball program is really special. We have 80 players on the team and one coach.
I am the youth program director, and I try to use basketball as a bridge for a better future for themselves. And a lot of them have parents that work 24/7. Their parents are working in restaurants or they work in other states. Working with these kids, I'm always there for them if they need me.
Another program that I'm really proud of that came out this year is called the Let's Talk Initiative. The Let's Talk Initiative is a NYU-sponsored study.
It's a pilot program that we're putting together, having young people really determine and set the agenda for the next couple of years, and having them weigh in on the pandemic, social injustice, police engagement, and really just letting them shape the needs of their community.
We're always adapting to the needs of the time. In 2020, because of the pandemic, we have a food pantry and distribution program that feeds approximately 900 meals per day.
It's a crucial time, like when it's an emergency situation, pandemic, that we step up and show and prove that we are here for the community, right?
We were and continue to be present in the community, ready and able to respond to any evolving issue.
Keeping in touch with the young people, doing check-ins with them in terms of their mental health, and just making sure that they're still okay and they're surviving and their families are surviving during this difficult time.
You know, before COVID happened, we were having meetings in the office. We have a very tight-knit group, a small group of people that we work with.
I've only been there a year, so when COVID started, I was only 2 months into the job. I really was just starting to get to know everybody. So I've really gotten to know everybody since we've changed over.
In some ways, we're even more connected because we're always talking on the phone or always on Zoom.
I think the Two Bridges Neighborhood Council's future is really bright.
The history of Two Bridges, we've built affordable housing in the neighborhood.
Over 40 years with another organization, 1,500 units of affordable housing. Two Bridges is currently exploring opportunities to add to the stock of the multiple units of affordable housing it has sponsored in the Two Bridges neighborhood over the years. This has included a senior residence, a mixed-income residential tower, commercial storefronts, a daycare center, and a social service building on South Street.
We have all our social outreach programs, we have our food distribution program, we have our arts program, we have our sports program, but really starting getting into some of these deeper social issues that stretch through our community and beyond is vitally important, and we're leading the way.
I love it. It's organizations like Two Bridges that help neighborhoods thrive, which is why we ask that you find it in your heart to donate. Please take a moment to text Give Two Bridges to 44321. Here to tell us more is a lauded and much beloved member of the community, Mr. Jan Lee. Jan Lee is the president of Sinoteek Group, vice president at Hamilton Madison House, co-founder of Neighbors United Below Canal, and the founder of the Chinatown Core Block Association.
Thank you, Damon. Chinatown and the Two Bridges community are facing unprecedented times. The last 15 months have certainly been challenging, and many of those challenges are still with us today. COVID-19 plunged our communities into state-mandated isolation, and because of this, we found our social service providers having to do much more with less resources and less personnel. COVID-19 underscored many inequities between Chinatown and the rest of the city. Language barriers and lack of internet access are just some of the hurdles that exist to make basic communication difficult during times of crisis. The closure of senior centers effectively cut off communication from many of our most vulnerable. And as a Chinatown resident of 3 generations, I can attest to the fact that Chinatown is resourceful, intelligent, and resilient. Many residents lived through 9/11 and Hurricane Sandy and are still with us today. However, how our homebound seniors would find groceries and basic nutrition was a question the government was not prepared to answer in the months leading up to the first cases of COVID-19 arriving in New York City. Our communities must never go hungry, and it's through the hard work of Two Bridges Neighborhood Council that this realization has been answered. Securing culturally appropriate meals, delivering them safely to homebound residents, many of whom were seniors, is among the ways that Two Bridges has answered the call. Keeping the lines of communication open with seniors, as well speaking the languages of the community, is for many what has kept hope alive and indeed saved many, many lives. I'm proud to be a part of this event tonight and to offer my ongoing support to Two Bridges, and I urge you to do the same. We must support our community-based organizations now more than ever so that we can prepare for a safe and healthy future.
My name is Tanya Castro-Negron. I am the Two Bridges Neighborhood Council Feed Thy Neighbor Program Coordinator. But I was doing this food distribution prior to jumping on board with CBNC. That's actually why they hired me. As the resident leader, I was doing this for 3 buildings. And then Victor reached out and was like, hey, we're doing something similar. We need a coordinator. And then I jumped on board, and it just made sense. They had more resources, you know, they had funding. And so we just collaborated and brought it all together. Lands End 2 Resident Association started in February. Our first report of a death in our building, we didn't know it was COVID. We just knew somebody, you know, there was like two residents, different residents that passed away. The Resident Association chair was like, I think that we need to do something. We need to step up, you know, for the residents. And it wasn't about food at the time. It was just about knocking on doors, making sure, you know, the seniors were doing well. And then we noticed some residents weren't coming outside because of the news about COVID and people dying and all this stuff around the world, you know? And then we said, okay, yeah, I think that's what we need to do. We need to start serving them. So we reached out to organizations like Vision Urbana, and he said, Tanya, I have some extra food. You could start with that. And then it just grew and grew and grew and grew. We've reached out to, I can say, 10,000 residents within this community and have served them. So I think that the food distribution team is more so of an asset to TBNC because of the serving, because we're serving people, because we're doing something for people and not expecting anything in return. I love my team. My team's like my family. We look out for one another. Most importantly is how you're feeling. Right? Are you okay? Are you sick? How's your family?
That's our team. That's our goal, you know? You can see, no matter race, people, they are coming here, you know, they talk to us, and we try to help them.
Oh, I give food to cancer patients, and mostly senior citizens. So every time they see me, they're all excited. We're like superheroes.
So much emotion, so much love. So when they go out and they serve with love. They serve with compassion. It's not just passing off a meal, putting it on the door and just leaving it. It's coming back and reporting, hey, this person wasn't home. Let's follow up and find out if they're okay. You know, let's go back tomorrow, let's go back the next day, let's go back the next day. And then if they're not there, then we know something's wrong. We have wellness calls for that reason. But we're one big happy family. And we're a happy family because we're serving.
They say we are angels to bring the food at the door, you know? And I'm glad to help people, you know? I'm glad.
There's no language barrier when you're serving food. There's no confusion about expressing compassion when you're serving food. It's like a language within itself. So like when they come to the door and they're asking for something, you automatically know what they're asking for. I don't know Chinese, but I know the difference between rice and noodles without actually remembering what the words are they use, but I know the difference. I can tell by their body language and their facial expressions. So that's what I'm saying, like you have to love what you do in this, and I can say my team does. I just gotta share that.
That's incredible. The sheer altruism of Tanya, her team, and all the volunteers will restore your faith in anything. It's truly, truly inspiring. Not only can you support Two Bridges by donating, but there's never been a better time to become involved. There's something for everybody at TBNC. The youth basketball program is ongoing and is currently in 3 leagues. Exciting tournaments happen all the time, so be sure to check that out. Fitness classes will finally be returning in person in September. Whew, in-person fitness, man. That sounds good, because this quarantine belly is getting aggressive. And the arts program is currently offering virtual courses, but will also be back for in-person lessons and classes this fall. They offer everything from piano and voice lessons to acting and musical theater, and will be rolling out some new group programs soon. Visit twobridges.org to find out more all about these programs and sign up today. One of the most wonderful aspects of the Two Bridges neighborhood is its diversity. There you'll find so many small businesses that are rooted in a sense of community and culture. The Two Bridges neighborhood has a large Asian American and Pacific Islander population, and its proximity to Chinatown makes for a remarkable synthesis of cultural touchstones and shared values. TBNC has always relished the opportunity to elevate the artistic and cultural elements of the AAPI community. And in light of the events of the past year, with the increased visibility of attacks against the AAPI community, those opportunities are needed now more than ever. With that said, here are some AAPI artists that are making waves. Please welcome the writers of the brand new musical Half the Sky, Isabella Daaé and Titaya Sinutag. And following them, the phenomenal Diana Huey will perform a song from the show entitled Outside.
Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum.
Hi, I'm Isabella Daaé, book writer and lyricist.
And I'm Titaya Sinutag, composer.
And we're the writers of the new musical Half the Sky, the story of an Asian American woman climbing Mount Everest.
Half the Sky is a contemporary American musical on a global scale, infused with the sounds of traditional Thai and Himalayan folk music.
Orally, a young Thai American woman sets out to fulfill her childhood dream of climbing Mount Everest a year after her sister's death. Borders blur between countries and cultures, past and present, and waking and dreaming in this epic journey of ambition, survival, and reconciliation.
You could be anywhere, Mount Hood or Mount Rainier, a tent in darkness in the snow. Why can't you catch your breath? You've trained for this all year, already dizzy, going slow. And every time you close your eyes, a feeling you don't recognize. Why hide from something you don't know? But you know that lacing up your boots is easy, zipping up your coat is easy, putting on your hat that you can do. No question, though your heart is beating fast now, there's no use in going back now. Open up the tent and walk through. Just go outside. Take only what you need, just for a couple days, just like a weekend on the road. You don't have room for pain, that burning goes away. It won't protect you from the cold. Don't even try to win this fight, you're never gonna sleep tonight. Some things are out of your control, but you know that lacing up your boots is easy, zipping up your coat is easy, putting on your hat that you can do. No question, though your heart is beating fast now, there's no chance of going
Thank you, Diana Huey, for that inspired performance. We cannot wait to hear more from you, Isabella and Titea. The future is bright for Half the Sky. Now, we'd like to take a minute to hear a word from our friends at Pita and Bayonne LLP.
Pita and Bayonne LLP is a law firm dedicated to providing dependable counsel to deserving clients. Our clients were told the air was safe to breathe after 9/11. It wasn't. From September 11th through July of 2002, the air was not safe to breathe in Manhattan south of Houston Street. We dedicated our practice to obtaining free healthcare and compensation for victims of 9/11 related illnesses, and advocated for legislation on their behalf. We also provide free counsel to protect other government benefits such as subsidized housing, healthcare, and food resources. Our clients deserve counselors who care. We believe in giving back to the community we serve, the community where we find our roots, our clients, and our values.
And now I am especially excited to introduce our next segment, sponsored by Pita and Bayonne LLP. Our special guest for the evening is Broadway star Ewoldt. Allie has performed on stages around the globe, but is best known for being the first Asian American woman to play Christine in Phantom of the Opera on Broadway. Joining her for this conversation is esteemed author, journalist, and editor-in-chief of Hyphen magazine, Karissa Chen.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh my God. It's so good to finally meet you, Allie. I'm Karissa Chen, just for everyone who's watching. I'm here with Ewoldt. It's really, really great to finally meet you and to speak with you today. So I just wanted to, dive right in. And, we're here to talk a little bit about your career, to talk a little bit about what it means to be Asian American, especially in this industry. So first of all, I wanted to ask you about sort of how you got to where you are now. Obviously, a lot of the students at Two Bridges and probably, elsewhere in New York are probably really into the arts. And maybe they don't always know how to make a career about it. And I did read that you originally were trying to find another career in college and that you studied psychology, which I did too, by the way. And I did not go into psychology. I was also trying to do the same thing as you, did not want to be a writer, thought that was not viable. So I totally understand where you're coming from. And, I wanted to get a little bit of background on that, for you to talk about it. Did you feel pressure from your parents? Was it pressure on yourself? How did you eventually get to the point where this was something that you were I'm going to go full steam ahead about it?
Yeah, I mean, great questions. Yay, psychology majors. I love that we can connect on not quite using those degrees. And yet, yeah. I mean, I'll get to the fact that I think that they actually are sort of relevant to all things anyway. But so I grew up about 45 minutes north of the city in the small village of Pleasantville. So I had access to theater, Broadway shows at an early age. Two of my aunts, I'm half Filipino, so my titas, Tita Myrna and Tita Eba, lived in Jamaica Estates, Queens. And so we would go and visit them all the time. And Tita Myrna in particular was just completely enamored with music. She was a beautiful musician, loved Broadway shows. And so she took me to my first Broadway show when I was 8 years old, which was a chorus line, which in retrospect, probably a little too young to be watching that show, and would let us borrow her VHSs, dating myself a little bit, of all the classic movie musicals. And so that was part of how I fell in love, with Broadway, with the idea of musicals. And then, of course, as I was growing up, Lea Salonga, who is obviously Filipino, started her big Broadway career in Miss Saigon. I got to see her play Eponine in Les Miserables when I was a kid. And I think that was incredibly influential in sort of the idea that there were people of a similar background to me that looked like me who were making a career, not just doing exclusively Asian roles, but maybe doing all sorts of parts on Broadway. And I think that was kind of part of my awakening there. My Lolo, my grandfather,
decided who got to be what, and it was either a nurse or accountant. Like those were the those were the two choices. My mom was an accountant, as was Tita Myrna. We had a lot of nurses as well. But Tita Myrna really, loved singing. And actually, my Lola, my grandmother, before she was married, used to sing with her sisters. They would sing Andrew Sisters type songs. So the music was kind of, in my I think in my DNA and in my psyche, and I understood sort of from my family that it was valuable, but nobody had done it as a career. And somehow I knew that that it was a very challenging business. And I don't remember my parents ever explicitly saying, you should continue to study academically, you should maybe find another career. As far as I was concerned, it was my idea to, continue to study to focus on academics, to find a college where I could study something else and perhaps find something that I was similarly passionate about. So I ended up going to Yale University, in their liberal arts undergraduate program, where I knew that I could take voice lessons through the School of Music for credit, that I could perform all the time in student-led productions all over campus, and that I could do, performing during the summer times. I would go off and do summer stock in, random barns in New England with no air conditioning, very little pay, but also, maybe find something else that I was excited about studying. And I'm not sure if this was true for you, but I found that, I was looking through the course catalog and I thought, ooh, like all of these psychology classes sound really interesting. I feel like I can fulfill all of these requirements. And also, at least for me at Yale, it wasn't the most academically taxing of majors, which sort of left me open to be able to do all of this extracurricular performing as well. And I really think that, because psychology is understanding why people do the things that they do, that it was inherently very connected to acting. I'm sure, very connected to writing and journalism and all sorts of things as well. And so really just kind of inspired me to think about people in a thoughtful, curious way and try to understand, different types of people and why they would behave the way that they do. And then, of course, my senior year, I happened to be performing in an opera with the graduate program. They needed an extra soprano to sing a small part. And thankfully somebody had come to see their friend. This person happened to be a New York theatrical agent. And she approached their friend afterwards and said, Allie sounds like she could perhaps also sing musical theater. And he said, actually, that's what she's interested in. And so it was just very, very right place at the right time, lucky circumstance. And the agent had me come into New York and audition, and then they were willing to take me on once I graduated. And so I think that in some ways was sort of the right assurance that, maybe I should at least give it a try before I completely abandon all dreams of performing.
In addition to having some like really iconic roles, including Cosette and Les Mis and Maria in West Side Story, you have this distinction of being the first Asian American woman to play Christine in Phantom of the Opera, which, by the way, was the first Broadway musical I ever saw. Yeah, when I was 8. So, and so I'm curious about, what that was like if you felt like you had any pressure to meet or upend certain expectations, or if there was like a burden of representation, if you got any pushback from people, from either like media or critics, from within the musical theater community, from even within like maybe the Asian American community. I'm curious about what that experience was like for you.
Yeah. My journey with auditioning for Phantom, I had been in love with the show since I was maybe 10 years old. It was on the early list of shows that I saw as well. And, I'd always known that I was a soprano and thought, this is the lead role for a soprano on Broadway. But it took me a solid 10 years of auditioning for the show to actually book it. I was auditioning for Phantom in various incarnations in Vegas, on tour, on Broadway. And so actually, getting the role finally after that long journey felt like this very, sort of selfish, I just wanted to play the part for me. But then, came with this incredible added sort of bonus and honor of being the first Asian American, the first BIPOC Christine on Broadway ever. The show had been running for about 29 years at that point. And it really sort of got picked up, I'm not entirely sure. I think even our press team was sort of baffled by how quickly people realized that this was a first situation and that it was sort of newsworthy. And so it was really amazing, honestly. Like, I think that the feedback that I got, particularly from my Asian American theatrical colleagues, was so supportive. They were so thrilled and so excited to get to see, you know, a leading role on Broadway that had traditionally looked one way, and to have this idea that, you know, the doors were being opened, that actually, you know, it didn't matter what the race was of this woman who was playing this iconic character, and that it made things possible in so many ways. And I think that that's part of the beauty for me of the Asian American theater community, is that we understand, you know, the people who have come before us, who have opened these doors. You know, there was wonderful colleagues who had been working in the business for a long time. We're just really excited to get to celebrate, as was, you know, the younger generation. And people were so generous about sharing their feedback on the internet, on social media, saying, you know, this makes me believe that all of these things are possible. And I think that knowing in my own life how important that representation was, and how important it was for me to see somebody who looked like me, you know, playing a role, to see Leia doing Les Mis, it felt like a tremendous honor. And then, you know, I felt, and I think that a lot of it felt self-imposed, but I did feel, you know, a tremendous pressure to make sure that even though I was the first, that I would not be the last by any stretch of the imagination.
I think it's like really great and like really groundbreaking to be able to see that. And like, you know, I'm glad that even though maybe there was some pressure for you, that you also got to like enjoy it for yourself on a personal level. So speaking of, we actually have a question from one of the students of the arts program at Two Bridges, Carla Calvo. She sang a Phantom song at her recital, and she and her teacher, Liana, actually saw you perform Phantom. And so I know, it's so sweet. And so she would like to know what your favorite scene and song from the show is.
Oh, fabulous. Hi, Carla. Oh, I'm so excited. There's nothing that warms my heart more than young folks that, you know, that love to sing Christine music. I think, oh gosh, I mean, the sort of the obvious choice for me is Wishing You Were Somehow Here Again. I think there's something so beautiful about that song and sort of this 11 o'clock number feeling of it. And this idea that, you know, in that moment, Christine is truly, because for me, you know, talking about psychology, so much of Christine's journey is about grief, right? Is about dealing with the loss of her father and finding her own footing and coming into her own. And that song is very much about how we choose, you know, to not get over our grief or let go of our grief, but sort of decide to come into being able to make decisions, having some agency, making some choices for ourselves. And I think that it's a very empowering moment for Christine to sort of be honest about what she is going through and then get to make decisions going forward.
Yeah, that's great. It's a beautiful song, and it's one of my favorites in the show also. Because since we were talking about arts instructors, one of the faculty, the artist faculty at Two Bridges, actually has a special performance of an original piano piece that he's planned called Evocation for the People of Two Bridges. And so we're going to take a break to listen to him play this piece. Well, thank you for that beautiful piece. Really excited to continue to talk to Ali about her experiences. Do you feel like, how things have, I think in the past few years, because as like there's been more awareness around the plight of BIPOC in general, racism, reckoning with that across the country, across industries. How has that impacted the musical theater industry? How do you feel like, if there's been like a shift in terms of how the industry treats people of color, particularly Asian Americans? And what about in terms of like telling BIPOC stories?
Yeah, I think that, the biggest shift that I've seen sort of since I've joined this business and in the last few years is just the willingness to talk about it. I think that, I'm very grateful that we are now, particularly in this last year, with the Black Lives Matter movement and sort of how that's, and with all of, the unfortunate, horrible rise in violence against Asian Americans as well, how we are now sort of having this dialogue about the responsibility of theater, of any sort of performance art, to make sure that we are representing everybody, and so that those people will have these fully fledged beautiful stories and we can understand humanity on a different level. The fact that if we are erased from those stages, then then racism and bigotry can grow and have very very terrible consequences, right? Very, very real, very scary, very violent consequences. And so I think that, now has been a great time for the theater industry to kind of continue to re-examine what our responsibility is, how we do tell those new stories. I think we generally have a far way to go, but the fact that people are willing to talk about it, or willing to learn, or willing to take classes, and to make sure that, that people are getting in the room on all sides of the table, right? I think that having producers who come from diverse backgrounds will help us to get these diverse stories up on stage as well. And I know that, we haven't quite reached all of the commercial levels, all of the big Broadway shows really getting to tell these stories, but there are amazing stories in development. I've been able to.
Now that things are starting to open again, I'm curious if you have any thoughts about how the pandemic might have a lingering impact upon the industry and community, whether positive or negative.
Yeah, I think that, that any sort of way that we can continue to expand and learn in our industry is a positive thing, right? Like, I think that is a really wonderful silver lining that has come out of this time. And the idea that, what's been great about this time as far as teaching goes is because, we're all on Zoom, we can have conversations that, maybe were possible before, but we just sort of were wrapped up in only doing things in person across continents, the fact that I get to talk to you right now. Or, just yesterday I did a voice lesson with this incredible young Vietnamese American soprano singing Think of Me. And she lives in California. And I don't know that I would have been able to teach her in person. But the fact that I got to do that, over Zoom and continue to encourage her, and, perhaps get to send her clips off so that maybe she can be cast as Christine someday, I think is a really beautiful thing that has come out of this time. And to have the addition of, getting to do virtual things, having, Broadway be more accessible to people all over the country that can't necessarily afford a ticket to fly in and to pay for a Broadway show, and to inspire, to inspire children all over the country and all over the world that, that this is something they can do. I think that part of what's going to be so important in continuing to have diversity and representation and inclusion, on our stages is having these kids that see themselves reflected and then are inspired to study and to pursue this as an art form, to understand that it is possible for them to make a career, and then, to have them come into New York and audition for these shows and show off their fabulous talents.
Yeah, definitely.
At least I know that I had been walking around for many years with the sense of, oh, it would never happen here. And all of a sudden, all of this latent racism and xenophobia that has existed, has come out during this time. It's horrible. It's terrible. And And it speaks to, you know, how much work we continue to have to do to make sure that we understand that, you know, that Americans come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes and colors and backgrounds. And we don't have to look a certain way to belong to this country, to have valuable contributions, to be part of the fabric of this nation. And I think that, you know, it's interesting too, because I am mixed race. So obviously, you know, you put a mask on me and I don't experience the same type of anger and fear that I think a lot of my friends and colleagues do. And so I think that, you know, it's been a time to kind of step up and see, you know, what I can do, how I can protect people, how we can make things better. But yeah, it's been, I think, unfortunately, very illuminating about how much work we have to continue to do. And even within my industry, it's been really interesting because I think that people that don't have to deal with racism on a daily basis, even within our industry, which is very beautiful and inclusive, but has, you know, very clear boxes that they put people into. You know, how many ingenue soprano roles are written for people who are blonde, and how does blonde, you know, very clearly indicate Caucasian, right? And so how many roles have I not necessarily been able to audition for because it didn't feel like I was something that could fit into that, and sort of watching my colleagues process that for the first time and realize that, you know, there are very real systemic barriers that have been put into place, and that things really, really do have to change. I think it's been great to sort of witness people coming to this realization that, you know, there were things that maybe they were able to ignore before because they didn't directly affect them, but now we're realizing that it does in fact impact the entire industry and the integrity of what we're all trying to accomplish.
Yeah, there's still like so much work to be done still, unfortunately, but I'm glad that like we're starting to take the steps to get there. And yeah, like all the things that you're saying about those ingenue roles, like the theater in general, like I think sometimes we get entrenched in a kind of like tradition, right? And then you don't look outside of that. So hopefully things will start to change. I have just one last question for you before I let you go. I wanted to ask you if you have some advice for any young POC who might be interested in a career in the arts, who might be listening to you right now.
Yes. Oh, please join us in the arts. We need you. I mean, we need young people who are passionate and have unique perspectives. I think, you know, the thing that I've learned is that we all have very unique things to contribute to this business. And the best thing that we all can do is continue to be the best versions of ourselves, right? To do our work on our end and to continue to show up, and also to understand that just because, you know, somebody that looks like us hasn't done something before doesn't mean that you can't be the first, right? If anything, if my Christine journey has taught me anything, it's that, you know, persistence is very important. Continuing to sort of show up and do your own work, you know, even if you get a no, it doesn't mean that invalidates your talent or who you are as a person. It just means that maybe that path wasn't right, but that you can sort of meander back towards that. But that continuing to show up, continuing to be willing to be there and accept things is incredibly important. And that, you know, that there are doors that will open if we continue to sort of show up and tell people that we are here and present. And just for you all to know that, you know, that your voices are valuable, and there will be a place for you. We're continuing to strive to make that true.
Oh, that's great. I hope so. I really hope so. I think we need the next young generation to step up and keep doing the good work. So, yeah. Well, thank you so much, Ali, for joining me today.
Thank you, Karissa and Ali, for such riveting conversation and insight. And special thanks to Joey Chang for that performance. Clearly, the students at Two Bridges Arts are in good hands. If you want to support teaching artists like Joey and Leanna and their students, please find it in your heart to donate today. Text Give Two Bridges to 44321. You never know. Your donation today could help someone become the next Ali Ewoldt. We'd like to take this time to acknowledge our sponsors and contributors, without whom most of this is impossible. It's generous contributions that allow Two Bridges Neighborhood Council to continue their good works in the community. To Edison Properties, Related Properties, Grenadier Realty Corporation, Peta and Bayonne LLP, and Hamilton Madison House. Thank you so very much. We are nearing the end of the evening and would like to remind everyone one more time to text Give Two Bridges to 44321. Your donations do more than you could possibly imagine. Now, I have been waiting for this finale. I am beyond thrilled to introduce two members of the Broadway company of Hamilton. Please welcome someone I truly adore, Fergie L. Philippe and Erin Clemons, to perform one of the all-time great New York anthems. Take it away.
Yeah, I'm out at Brooklyn, now I'm down in Tribeca, right next to De Niro, but I'll be hood forever, I'm the new Sinatra, and since I made it here, I can make it anywhere, yeah, they love me everywhere, I used to cop in Harlem, all of my Dominicanos, right there up on Broadway, point me back to that McDonald's, took it to my stash box, 560 State Street, catch me in the kitchen like a Simmons whipping pastries, cruising down 8th Street, off-white Lexus, driving so slow, but BK is from Texas, me, I'm out that Bed-Stuy, home of that boy Biggie, now I live on Billboard, and I brought my boys with me, say what up to Tata, still sipping my tats, sitting courtside, Knicks and Nets give me high five, I be spiked out, I could trip a referee, tell by my attitude that I most definitely
In
from
New York, concrete jungle where dreams are made of, there's nothing you can't do, now you're in New These streets will make you feel brand new. Big lights will inspire you. Let's hear it for New York, New York, New York.
Catch me at the X with the OG at a Yankee game. I made the Yankee hat more famous than a Yankee can. You know that I bleed blue, but I ain't a crypto. But I got a gang of fellas walking with my click though. Welcome to the melting pot, corners where we sellin' rock. African Bambata, home of the hip hop. Yellow cab, gypsy cab, dollar cab, holla back for foreigners. It ain't that they act like they forgot how to act. 8 million stories out there and they naked. City, it's a pity. How say y'all won't make it? Me, I got a plug special ed, I got it made. If Yeezy's playing LeBron, I'm playing Dwayne Wade. 3 dice CeeLo, 3 card Marley. Labor Day parade, rest in peace Bob Marley. Statue of Liberty, long live the World Trade, long
Come
live
on.
the king, yo. I'm
Come
gonna
on.
slip you an
In New
Ambien.
York, concrete jungle where dreams are made of, there's nothing you can't do, now you're in New York. These streets will make you feel brand new. Big lights will inspire you. Let's hear it for New York, New York, New York. One hand in the air for the big city. Street lights, big dreams, all looking pretty. There's nobody in the world that can compare. Put your lighters in the air, everybody say yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. In New York, concrete jungle where dreams are made of, there's nothing you can't do, now you're in New York. These streets will make you feel brand new. Big lights will inspire you. Let's hear it for New York, New York, New York.
What a finale. I couldn't think of a better way to cap off what's been a fantastic and gratifying evening. It's been such a pleasure to host tonight. Thank you all so much for watching. And remember, it's never too late to donate. Please know that your generosity is generosity in action. Your contributions help give agency to those that need it the most. All of the programs you've heard about this evening are essential investments in the future of the Two Bridges neighborhood, the city, and our society at large. Thank you, and good night.